Okay, well, we can go ahead and kick off. Thank you everyone for joining. Really excited for this webinar. Should be a good group today. I've known Sandy and Austin for quite a little bit of time now, and we've spent a little time working together on this together. So should be some fun. The whole point of today is to make things educational, to teach what we've learned. Not necessarily a sales pitch from InsuredMine today. Really just want to provide value to the community. And we'll go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've got some PowerPoint slides basically that we're going to use to guide us. But if you do have questions during this time, don't hesitate to ask. We'll either get to them right away or get to them closer to the end, depending on how many are rolling in. And I can go ahead and start sharing now. All right, so yeah, this is an InsuredMine sponsored webinar. We are talking today about why insurance agencies must use a CRM. It's crazy to think that still only around 50% of the 40,000 agencies in the country are using a CRM today. We'll go through basically, why you should, what the value is, the outcomes that you should see, and everything in between. So we're getting started here a little early, which is great. We're going to spend probably about 45 minutes talking. Luckily, I've got Austin and Sandy here who I'll let introduce themselves in a second. So you won't have to hear me talk the whole time, which is great. And then we'll open it up for Q&A toward the end. So again, don't hesitate to stop and ask questions. We want to make this as conversation as possible. So without further ado, ladies first, Sandy, if you want to give the lovely folks a rundown of who you are and your background, we'd love to hear from you.
Sure. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Sandy. I am from England, if you hadn't caught the accent. I have a background in sales. I had 10 years selling engines and transmissions, 10 years selling accountants for Ernst & Young, and then in 2009 started with the O'Quinn agency. I'm now their operations manager, taking care of about 30 people. And we currently look after about 28 million in revenue. We started with InsuredMine in September 2022, rolled out live on January 1st this year, and we are slowly rolling out more and more automations and already seeing a huge difference in the speed of our sales and also in the interactions with customers.
Awesome. Thanks, Sandy. Austin, same thing, man.
Hello. I got started in the State Farm space, I think back in like 2015, realized being captive wasn't the end all for me, and quickly became a broker and realized there was a tech problem, and solving tech was kind of like my responsibility on day one, and realized I had a passion for playing in the tech space. And in 2019, we opened up Lava Automation, and Lava's job really is to help insurance agencies set up their CRM and then maintain it and make sure they're kind of following some of the best practices, and then getting data out of it to kind of prove that we're following the best practices and learning a little bit about that. And so I think today we manage about $250 million in premium across our accounts. And that's kind of what we do.
Awesome. And I'm Tucker Hood, head of sales. If we haven't met yet, super excited to be with you today. Obviously, I am in this every day, selling it, using it. We eat our own dog food at InsuredMine. We use the platform. So I think it's going to be a really good conversation. Obviously, you've got Sandy, who has implemented at an agency, an agency that's growing, has been in sales herself, so sees the value of both sides, both an admin and a user. And then Austin, who lives in this every day with his team doing implementation. So without further ado, again, I'm going to go the right way. So shameless plug just for 2 minutes here. You may not know what InsuredMine is. You may have received an email from us saying, hey, there's a webinar coming up. We are a CRM platform is what we call ourselves, but we really do everything that the AMS does not, your agency management system. So while it's good at policies, commissions, accounting, we're more on the sales, marketing automation, e-sign, tasks, forms, anything customer facing. We do integrate with your agency management system and are an add-on, a bolt-on to that to make your agency just go faster. So only plug you'll get from me today really on us, and we can go from there. So the main topic, and Austin, Sandy, you can start wherever you want, but why do you need a CRM and what do you do with it?
All right, so Sandy said 28 million in revenue. So it's, I don't know, is that 100,000 policies that you guys have to manage
You
annually?
know what? I don't know off the top of my head anymore. Yeah, no,
And so it's like, but how could you do it without organization?
oh,
You know, like
yeah,
platform I think it's such
yeah,
an understatement.
yeah, we have a target for our sales team. It's like $1 million a month. How on earth would you manage that? When I started here, we had a Microsoft Access database. It's so impressive.
It's like Excel almost, right?
Yeah,
And it's like
yeah,
you get 500 leads come in a month, and they're in various, you know, parts of the sales process, and it's like, how do you collectively manage them? I think pipeline and stages personally is probably the
yeah,
cleanest, most efficient way to do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Yeah. I was looking to see if there's something on here about auditing, you know, those pipelines and stages. I don't want to get ahead of myself, because it's, you know, one thing to have the pipeline and stages to, you know, keep all of your cards in, but it's another to keep them organized in a timely manner.
Yeah, organization is only as good as how clean it is, right? But we call them bumpers in a bowling alley. So essentially, any of those deal stages keep you in between the lines of where you are. I know for me, selling at the same time as managing, it's hard enough to keep track of my own deals if they're not in one location. Doing that at scale when you've got multiple employees across different business units can be difficult.
I think one of the
Yeah.
things we've seen with InsuredMine is, I'm sure everyone agrees, there's a hiring issue nationally right now. You know, you lose one staff member, you get a new one in, you get them up and trained, and I can literally hit one button and reassign every single deal card to that new staff member, and that saves me hours of work. So just that one thing.
And then there's a couple tools inside of it, maybe to give you visual cues to help with the cleanup. I think you can get like delay timers that turn, you know, red. And so it's kind of like, hey, is this thing being forgotten? You know, and what I recommend is to do like weekly, you know, stage cleanup, you know, with the individual or with the department, and make sure everyone's got their deals, you know, in the right places, and they're not getting automations they're not supposed to get. And that's a poor customer experience.
Yep. So for us, we do weekly deal reviews with every rep. And Friday, we go through the pipeline, each deal, especially if it's later stage pipeline, and make sure it's in the right place.
During that call, do you guys get into any of the nuances of the deals?
So I actually use a formula called Pick Banty. It's problem, impact, cause, budget, authority, need, timeline, why us, why now. And usually those things need to be in place for you to move it down the funnel past just a booked meeting. So we do use some qualification that you need to figure
Can
out
you
before.
put that acronym into chat for everybody?
There's also, this is more software sales, but it would apply, especially if you're finding problems. A lot of people will use like a MEDDIC, MEDDIC. It's similar. It's got a lot of the same letters in it, just a little shorter. So
It's a checklist to tell you if you can move between stages, though. I think it's kind of clever to have some type of formal, you know, process that we review cards, though, before we move them or don't move them.
yeah, in certain CRMs, you would be able to prevent a deal card from moving forward unless all those checklist items are filled out too, which, you know, salespeople can be like golden retrievers with ADD. I say that as a salesperson myself, and we get a little willy-nilly with our forecasting. So important to provide some guidance there. So Austin, follow-ups. I know you've kind of got this down to a science, and I won't get too far ahead, but
Sure.
what should we
How much
follow
is too
up
much
with?
and how much is too little?
You tell me, man. I'll keep us going, but you got it.
So I like to call them sequential marketing plans, right? So we have like a new lead stage or a quote sent stage or a missing info stage. And it's like, how many times should we try and reach out to you before we should abandon the follow-up? And typically we run most of our campaigns to about 30 days. Usually when we're engaging with a customer, they're going to make a buying decision in 30 days. And so you're kind of defeating the purpose if you're chasing them potentially past that binding period. And so most of our campaigns are about that long. And then we do anywhere from like 15 to 20 touches, and the majority of them are automated. But we try and scatter them between 2 to 3 days. And we try to make sure the content's relevant to like where you're at in the timeline. Like email one timeline might sound like, hey, we're supposed to talk today, versus, you know, email three might, hey, it's been a couple weeks since we were supposed to connect. And so the content talks about where we're at in the timeline too. But yeah, 15, 20 touches, 30 days is like a minimum standard for campaigns. And then at least 2 or 3 channels of communication, right? Text, email, phone calls, and if you can, RVMs.
Sandy, Austin, have you seen resistance when you talk about doing multiple touch points from salespeople? Are they like, oh, I want to control it, and how do you combat that?
Sandy?
We definitely have. We've actually, and I'm kind of skipping a couple of slides, but we identified a couple of champions in our agency when we first started the move to InsuredMine, and they basically went in from September onwards and learned how to use the platform, and literally were chomping at the bit on January 1st to get automated videos in there that they're sending out introducing themselves. And that's probably, you know, a little bit further down the line of a standard implementation. But just as far as, I guess we could create lazy salespeople, but I don't know. I'd be willing to take that risk, because literally, depending on the stage that it's in and depending on the last time they touched it, the system is sending out warm and fuzzies. You know, haven't heard from you, would love a chance to get your business, tell me what I need to do, all of those kind of things. That yes, we want them having those phone conversations, but it's also doing it for us. So you have that combination, as you said, email, text, phone calls. There's, you know, every customer is going to have a different preference as far as how we get in touch with them, and this enables us to definitely do that.
Yep. Yeah, those high touch 5 and 10 minute tasks are the ones that we should really, those follow-ups and touch points, those 2 green bubbles that we're looking at here are the big ones. So moving on to reporting. So I think we're all, you know, pretty aware that the agency management system is notoriously difficult for reporting. It's either maybe a headache or maybe a mental health crisis, depending on what agency management system you're in. So what should we be reporting off of in our CRM? Sandy, Austin, either you can take that first.
I think at a minimum, we should know our lead source to close ratios. Certainly, there's a lot of stages in between lead and closed, and you could get the micro stage conversions. But ultimately, you know, if you get 100 leads, how many of them did you convert? It's a very important number to know, and you should know it per lead source. It allows you to kind of, you know, reinvest your time, effort, energy into the things that are making you profit. That's a big one for me, lead close.
Our other thing, and I'm on the lead to close thing, because I have this conversation with every new hire we have. We don't know where to spend our marketing dollars if you don't put the right information in. It is so important. We might think we're selling a particular lead source at a real high closing percentage, to come to find out that one of our sales team is putting the wrong information in. And then it's like, great, we just spent so much on this event. That was a waste, you know. So you can manage more than just, you know, your sales themselves, the pipeline. You can manage what people are doing, where we're putting our most efforts.
I love that. I think a lot of agency owners that I'll talk to that haven't implemented something like this know that they're growing at a certain rate, but they don't know why. They don't know if it's they're increasing policies per account. They don't know if a lead source is heating up right now that they should invest more money into, if it's organic or if it's, you know, just by luck.
Renewals.
So,
Yeah, it's a
yes,
hard market. Everyone's getting 30% rate increases.
right. And you're like, I'm growing, and you're like, oh, kind of,
Yeah.
kind of. So.
Yeah.
So that's great. And then doubling down on that data is going to tell you where to go next, especially if you're looking to scale right now. So great stuff. We always say if you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Yeah, and then so just generally speaking, if we want to grow sales, we got to measure just you know, leading indicators, right? How many calls, how many quotes, right? Those types of activities are indicative of future results. You know, if we want to get into the micro nuances of it. And then it kind of depends, you know, where you want to measure. You know, if we're talking department heads, sometimes we really just want to look at the results. You know, did you hit, you know, $500,000 premium this month, department? You know, I don't really care to have the KPI conversation with the sales manager. I just want to look at the results, right? So it's some of these reports are department specific, or, you know, role specific reports.
Definitely. And if, you know, we live in a perfect world and the outputs are there, if you're having your $500,000 month, you typically don't have to
Yeah.
measure the inputs and the KPIs. But if you don't, that's the first place you can go.
And go back.
And you got to have that data somewhere to be able to have that conversation. So I think we've hit 11 of 12 of these. Either one of you want to talk a little bit about integrations into multiple systems with kind of the CRM as the heartbeat?
The bane of the insurance industry is you have to do double data entry, triple data entry. You know, you've got it here, but you don't have it here. And I think that you know, having a CRM is a requirement now these days to compete, you know. And if your CRM doesn't talk to your AMS at all, like imagine the amount of time that you're losing essentially having to kind of duplicate some of your processes. And so the more you can get your tech to talk, like the easier life becomes. Just that simple, in my opinion.
Definitely. And the only thing I would add is, you know, the human error component. Because, yeah, if you're doing double entry, triple entry in some cases, as I've seen before, like you can guarantee there are going to be mistakes. If everything's talking to everything, okay, there might be a mistake in the first place, but it's going to go across the board. So you're not going to have an issue with finding that same customer in your AMS because their name's spelled differently. It's so much simple stuff that these systems integrating just completely eliminates.
100%. And at a bare minimum, like Austin mentioned and Sandy, if your agency management system and your CRM do not connect, that's going to cause a lot of headache. Now, obviously, you want the way you collect data, whether it's through a form or manual input, to be connected to these other systems, things like phone systems, your email, your text. You know, that's going to save you massive amount of time just there, kind of table stakes. Okay, so what do you do with a CRM? We kind of talked a little bit about pipeline management and driving sales already, the bumpers in the bowling alley. Sandy, I know you've got some slides on this here in a minute, but tell me more about pipeline management.
It's huge. I mean, it's the biggest thing that, like, we tell all our sales team, like, don't think you're smarter than the CRM. Let the CRM run your day. Let the CRM prioritize for you. You concentrate on having the right conversations, getting the quotes right, following up while the system's also following up. Because the people who don't let the CRM do what it does are the ones that end up in a mess, no clue what they're doing. And guess what? Their sales drop. But if you let the system, my boss always says, follow the big red bouncing ball. If you let the system tell you what to do next, who to touch next, it's based on years of research and lots of money put into that research to make sure that you're following up at the right times. Why would you ignore that? And that's, again, training conversation day one. You're using our CRM. This is why. And everyone who adopts it and follows it has seen success. So
Sandy, I know you're a big proponent of this. Do you feel like it helps you onboard agents faster and get them where they need to go?
Yeah, we're gone from probably 90 days for someone with barely any sales and no insurance experience. We can get someone up and running and quoting and selling in 30 days now. The other big thing we've found is you tell someone when we're going through the hiring process that we have a CRM that does all it does, and we give them a quick demo, we're more likely to get them to come on board with us because they see, you know, it's like, oh, I don't even have to learn how to do sales. I can just follow this red bouncing ball and I'm all set.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's a huge recruiting tool, actually, that we see people now. I think it's starting to be common. If you don't have, you know, your technology stack built versus the next guy, like, where do people really want to work at? You know, people that are with file cabinets and you know, kind of antiquated processes, or the people that are modern tech and they're using, you know, all of the Zoom and CRM type stuff that there is out there. Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Great point. Yeah, the average age of an insurance agent 2 years ago was 59, so it's got to be 61 now or close to it. You're seeing a new wave of folks come in, and they want the right tech stack and the right process to help them start making money, right? Austin,
Google reviews, man, Google reviews. What an understatement. I think the automation's responsible for a ton of Google reviews, and if you're not using it, like, you forget as a person, all the follow-ups you forget to do. You're sick, you're at lunch, you've got some other, paper in the printer you got to get up and get, and you forgot to ask for the review. Like, thank goodness for CRMs, right?
And this
So,
builds on everything. Like Google reviews are going to increase your SEO, right? When people are searching for you in the area. I know for me, I'm not on Yelp a lot, but people treat reviews these days as, hey, I'm going to do this or I'm not going to do this. A lot of times people have already made close to a buying decision before they even contact you. And Google reviews is a way that folks find that out.
yeah, I like the automatic, the automated engagement thing there. Well, I was thinking more like automatic engagement. Kind of makes me think of like the power of a CRM connected to a website. You've got that quote intake form and that lead syncs right to that first stage. And, the automation, there's no human interaction at this point. The automation's talking to the person, asking them to, reach out or fill out a fact finder or something like that. And, to the customer experience, very beautiful. We're having this digital, I'm on your website. Now I'm getting emails from you and I never had to talk to you. And I've submitted all my information. It's technology that allows us to do that type of stuff.
There's also the warm and fuzzies of that automation. I mentioned it briefly before. We don't have a marketing person on staff anymore who writes emails for constant contact. We cheat and use chat GPT to make it sound good, but why not? But literally, I mean, there's already templates in a lot of them anyway, but we've just tailored them, and you're just doing all those touch points that research tells us customers need before they will buy. Because we're getting to the point that literally someone will buy from a Google review, but then there's the however many percent that still need to speak to someone live. In fact, sometimes sit in front of them face to face. But either way, you don't know that until you talk to them. And while ever they're getting all that stuff up front of thanks for your interest, and here's our agency, and we're going to get you the best price, and all that stuff's going out to them automatically that looks like it comes from the person that they're talking to.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be manual. It can come from their email, it can come from their text message number and go right back to them. But what we see a lot is people giving up after 1 or 2 tries, and often it takes 7 to 8 touch points before somebody makes a buying decision.
2 to 3 weeks. Yeah.
Scoreboard. So how do we use the scoreboard? I know Austin and Sandy, both of y'all are big on this.
Oh, this is huge for us, because we literally have people shouting across the office, or they have role play some mornings, and you'll hear someone on the sales team saying, "Oh, I beat you yesterday," and it's just all that gamification. We have a slide on it, but it makes a huge difference, because there's that friendly rivalry, because also everyone knows what everyone else is doing, and if you're at the bottom of the list, you're like, I need to get my game face on, and I need to step
And
up.
nothing drives sales like a little competition. So if you're not tracking it, and you're not showing it to the whole team, the sales team, and kind of rub it in their faces all day long, in a friendly, positive way, you're not going to kind of challenge them to want to beat one another. People do this no matter what. As soon as you make a competition, it's just instinctive, that we want to compete and win a little bit.
Yeah, and I think people think that salespeople are the biggest thing they're driven by is money, but it's competitive. People are driven by, hey, I want to be the best. It's an intrinsic thing more than it is a physical dollar thing, at least from my experience. So are we missing anything here from the peanut gallery? Anybody via chat, or any value props, anything that you're doing with your CRM that you'd like to share? Would love to hear you in the chat box. Before that, I'll touch on one thing. So we just built eSign at InsuredMine, and we found that's been an incredible value add for our customers, because they're starting the eSign process in our system where they already have contact data. They can pre-fill data in an eSign document, and then that signed document will then be attached to that contact and account, both in their CRM and their agency management system. So, one thing that a lot of people, if you start to look at this, you'll say, well, I may have this software for that, and I may have this software for that. And before you know it, you've got 4 to 5 pieces of software, when one system can normally cover that. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But so Sandy, you've got a couple real screenshots
Yes.
that you can explain way better than me. So would love to hear you go through this.
So top left is basically a pipeline view. This was run on a Sunday, which is why you have some orange ones down the left, because they are not, they've not been contacted yet, but it's because it's a Sunday. I did tell the guys, actually, we do have somebody who does go in on a Sunday because she cannot stand to see the orange ones, and she will reach out to someone. She also doesn't usually have red or black. If you can point out the due dates. So that one's red because it's overdue. But one of our users has everything's either green because it's in future or black because it's today, and she gets very upset if it's not like that. And we actually use that. We have someone who is so well organized that having the reds sends her nuts. So we use her for training because she has such a wonderful process and the way of looking at her pipeline that, it's like, well, share the wealth, share how you make it even better by keeping up on things. But it just makes it so easy for anyone. The salesperson themselves can see exactly what they've got going on. It's a little small, but you can see next to each stage you have prospect and there's a number, so they know how many people they haven't talked to yet, contacted. They've got all the info, so they just need to run the quotes, and they've got everyone in a deck, we call them internally, and they know where they stand on all of them. The other one down at the bottom is basically the gamification. So you have all of our sales team and how much they've done during the day. They can look back as well. They can see yesterday if they didn't happen to keep it on all day or didn't refresh it before they left. But you can literally hit today, and it shows where you stand with your peers. And as Tucker says, competitiveness. If you haven't got a competitiveness in a salesperson, they're probably not a salesperson, because most salespeople
Sandy, I think I missed it. Maybe the audience did. Did you say this is their daily sales here?
This was a day.
Dang, you got gunslingers.
Well, you have to remember we're in Florida.
Yeah.
And your typical homeowner's policy for a $500,000 home is getting up there, especially if it's on the beach. You can have a $10,000 premium without batting an eyelid. So it's cool to see.
Are great. Yeah. And the organization side, I mean, just seeing this every day, either as a sales rep, hey, I know if I've got an hour in a day to check my pipeline, I'm starting at the right and I'm saying, what can I move to bind, right? Okay, what negotiation can I move to future follow-up? These little red things should tell me, hey, I have something past due completely, or a task that I need to complete right now. And it doesn't take a whole lot of mental effort to go through your pipeline and make sure you're taking care of business, which is huge for a salesperson that has, emails coming in, people calling, customers, boom, back to the pipeline. I know what's next.
Apps you're chasing. Yeah.
I think we have a couple of questions that popped up in chat.
Are there filters to show what is being sold? Where is it per city carrier? So any CRM that's worth its salt should have filters like that. Carrier, line of business, a state, a due date, right? These things, obviously, lead source are the things that you should be filtering by. Some of this stuff will be pulled off the pipeline. Other things we can pull directly from the agency management system after a download hits and help you report off of.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that our sales team use, because you can see there's a little filter icon at the top of every stage, and you can filter, you can sort by your due date versus your expected closing date. You can sort by premium. So I know I've got time to make 10 phone calls. I'm going to sort by expected premium and call the big ones first, because that's how I'm paid. So, there's so many different ways to filter and sort within each pipeline, and as well for the management, because we can see, okay, I can look at this person's pipeline and say, okay, they've got quite a lot of red. What's going on? You know, we meet with our sales teams weekly as well, and this is the place we go. It's like, how healthy is your pipeline? How well taken care of? How clean?
Yep. So is there a way to track the pipeline by revenue and not premium? So down here at the bottom, you will see this is the premium number. Some people want to look at premium and revenue. Some people wait until the download hits before they, do the reporting for revenue in their agency management system, but you would be able to insert either one and track by that if you so choose. Andrew, great question.
Yeah, because the bottom one there, you notice there's 3 icons on the top right of that one deals by agent. One is number of number of deals. One is premium and the other one is revenue. So you can also do your gamification that way as well.
Great questions, everyone. All right, we are about halfway through. I think we're doing pretty good on time. So whenever you make a decision in your business, you should be thinking of outcomes, and you should be thinking of what is the current state that I'm living in, and what is the future state, and what is the difference in those outcomes. So some of these numbers, we've seen consistently across agencies and the outcomes that they've hoped to achieve and that they have achieved. Sandy, Austin, I'll kind of let you pick up on the ones that you want to talk through, and we can go from there.
The first one's mine, and we see it 100% of the time. If you're not on a CRM and you add a CRM, you're going to increase by a minimum of 25% new business revenue. We've had agencies 7x new business revenue several times. And so if you're not on a CRM, you need to get on one tomorrow. I think it's a no-brainer. So yeah, that first one is a stat that I know near and dear.
Definitely the win rates increase. We've definitely seen that, just because it ties down the process. It makes them do all of the touch points that they're supposed to do. And just, we haven't been able to track it yet because we moved to InsuredMine on January 1st. But when we first got a CRM back in 2011, we actually saw probably a 30% increase just because it was organized. People knew who to call next, which we'd never had before. So that's definitely.
Yeah, as many deals as you
how
guys
well
got coming in every month, I could just imagine without a
yeah.
CRM, the chaos.
Yeah, it's nuts, but it's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah. And so in the early days, we thought, and I say early days, it's really not the early days, but like 5-6 years ago, I was like, oh, CRMs are for sales automation, new business, and we solved the new business processes. And it was like, wait a second, we've got real headaches at renewals with all this remarketing, and we're chasing people after we find them savings. And so now we put automation into the renewal processes, and in retention rates went up. We've got agencies at 94, 96% retention rates because they have a very automated process that allows them to touch the high problem areas very effectively without a whole lot of human, resources because of the CRM technology. So retention rates went up dramatically because of the CRM.
So Ed Gilman just raised his hand. Ed, you want to talk? I just allowed you to talk, or you can chat in, whatever you feel comfortable with, or maybe you did it on accident. I don't know.
Just an accident. Sorry, guys. Hit the wrong button.
Well, now you got to say.
We are looking forward to it.
Mesmerized, though. Mesmerized.
All right. I appreciate that. Always good to see you, man. Okay.
Well, hold on. There was something else on here. So onboards new employees faster. So we were talking about that earlier. And then, yeah. So then the bottom one's also in mine. So we've done several instances where we've manually sat and clocked the activity behind individual who has a CRM built out for them. So it's going to manage your follow-up conversations in the pre-sell. And if you think about, how long it takes you to sit and write an email, maybe 5 minutes. If it's templated, maybe 2, but you got to stop, you got to pause, you got to pull it up, you got to copy paste, right? And then you got to make sure there's something funny in it, and then you hit send, right? We're 2 to 5 minutes per email. And then a text, you're probably honestly, you're 1 minute to 2 minutes per text. And then if you do voicemails, there's a couple minutes there as well. And you start looking at, the average producer probably gets, 1 to 5, leads a day. Certainly that number varies depending on the agency. And, all of the activity it would go into, all of this mental rent that you must, do to move those people through that experience. And we're coming back with easily 200 hours of labor that's done per person in the CRM, in both a pre-sale and onboarding and a retention capacity report populating. And a CRM is the most underappreciated asset in an agency today, in my opinion. Um, Easily worth its weight in gold, if it weighed anything. The servers or something.
We're all on the cloud, whatever that means. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the average employee works about 168 hours a month. So like you said, they would double their efficiency. I think the reason for that is, a CRM doesn't sleep, doesn't take holidays, doesn't get sick, and keeps pumping as long as there's things moving through the funnel.
And auto build reports about the whole entire process throughout. So you're not having to, like, on a piece of scratch paper, tally up that you did 10 calls today. This is the quoted premium, and here's who you got to talk to before you get out. Like, the CRM just does that. Saves such a headache to have without it. So
One of the other things, just it's back up the list, but the internet closing. Because when I first came on board in this agency, we had, some of you who were on at the beginning might have heard me say, we had a Microsoft Access database, and we were buying internet leads, and we had no clue how well they were closing. You could pull a report, but you couldn't do anything with it. I learned pivot tables because of the Microsoft Access database so that I could actually get some relevant numbers. But as soon as you were on a CRM, literally being able to say, okay, these leads that are costing me $15 a time are selling at whatever percentage, you can make that decision of, should I still be doing this, or could my money be spent better elsewhere? And I don't know how people get true numbers without a CRM. I really don't. I don't get how you would be able to manage your marketing without a CRM.
I think that's it in a nutshell right there. Is, again, you really don't know for the most part. Brian, your question on how is the potential revenue premium calculated before sold? So typically that's an input that somebody would do. Typically once they get to, like, the quoting stage, they'll start putting in that information, unless they're getting that data earlier. There is another way. So if you're using a form of ours or another system that's connected to a rating system, we can actually pull that quote data back into the quote section, which is pretty sweet, because then you can see anything that's been rated or quoted through that rating system. Now, once it's actually bound in the agency management system, we'll pull that data down and show that back in that account or in our performance section, which happy to show you, where you can track this over time. So a lot of numbers here, really, there is a lot of plus signs here, but you really should think about what you're losing. Because when I look at this, I say, well, if I'm not using a CRM, I'm losing 25% of my new business every month. My win rates are down 15% from where they should be, right? And these are the material differences that allow you to scale a team, hire more VAs overseas, invest in better employees, as the market is a little wild right now, and just run a better agency. Okay, we will keep rolling. So we're going to take a little field trip here. Everybody pack your lunch boxes, get your
oh, it's not that crazy.
Get your waivers signed. I'm going to go ahead and let Austin share his screen here.
This is not that crazy. So we do a lot of effort to try and improve the value of the CRM. In the early days, it was like, okay, hey, we know that you should automate your follow-ups. It's a no-brainer. We're flying the CRM like an airplane, and you can feel the turbulence. You're getting negative responses back, you're getting positive responses back, but overall, the experience was positive. But as time went by, like, the feeling of, the positive outcome of the CRM just wasn't enough. We had to start to report and improve on its efficiency to know whether or not, one, it was doing what we thought it was doing, and then two, to find maybe some gaps in the process. And so we set out to learn where people were converting in the quote sent stage. In fact, we do this in all of our stages. And so what we're looking at here is the last 365 days. Let me see if I can get the annotate up so I can kind of give you a visual as I cruise through here. And so the last 365 days, we have a total of 633 unique contacts that came into the personalized quote sent campaign. And then 654 of them have exited. We're going to talk about the 654 today. This is what's the most important. And so what our data tells us is that, I'm going to turn off the annotate to scroll, that 52% of the people exited the personalized quote sent stage on a text message as the last outcome. And that the call is 18% responsible for converting people out of the stage. The ringless voicemail, 14%, the email, 12%. And if you add up all the automated pieces, it's about 80% of your stage to stage conversions. Get out of here. 80%, guys.
So
That
Austin,
means we
just
either
wanna
have,
take a pause.
yeah,
so
big breather
everybody
there.
understands that. So 80% of the communication is automated that leads to a
The
conversion.
next outcome. And not all outcomes are positive. I'll be fair with that. And we'll get into some of that data here in a second. But the automation single-handedly is responsible for 80%. And so I think earlier on the call, Sandy said something like CRM can make producers lazy. Absolutely, right? And so if you're writing 30,000 a month in premium as a, a producer, and all of a sudden you get a CRM, and you notice that, crap, everyone's replying to this automation stuff, and I'm just going to kind of sit back and wait for that to happen. Your numbers are going to be about the same, maybe even a little bit better if you stop doing all the outbound. But we see people that do the outbound still end up producing 20-30% more than the people that don't. And so CRMs can make you lazy, because with a CRM, you're still going to produce more than you were without doing the manual stuff. So yeah, less than 20% of the actual conversions was the phone calls. Okay. So then now let's get down into the lower piece of this report that really kind of explains the last of it. And what we're looking at here is where the individual touch points resulted in the next outcome. And so call one had 88 people that left this personalized quote sent campaign, and 30 of them, the next campaign they went to was the waiting on decision. So like on the call, they said, hey, I've seen the quotes, looks good. I got to talk to my wife, partner, spouse, etc. Can you give me a week and we'll talk again? So we consider that to be a positive transition. The next disposition was we had 15 people on call one that went to X date, kind of a neutral. And then below that, we had 11 people that went straight to loss. And so we can see the impact of call one, right? It results in wins and loses and neutrality, as does every touch point. And if you come over here, let me hide the annotate button here for a second so I can drag this. And you look at the SMS, you'll notice that essentially SMS one has the same division of results that call one did. It's just amplified, right? It's like almost double the results, right? They had 26 people go straight to policy sold. Straight to policy sold. Yeah, policy sold right after that first text message went out. And so we can see that, one, the automation is doing its work. Two, it moves it to the right places. And then what the accident of this report was, and we don't know if it was the intended design of it, but we started to notice that SMS3, what's going on here? Zooming out, SMS3 resulted in a loss every single time that it went. And it's shifting dramatically today because we've caught it. But in the early days, SMS3, let's see if I can, it's kind of hard to annotate and move the cursor here. There we go. Am I still on the screen? I am. Okay. All right. So SMS3 originally was resulting 100% in losses when we first started looking at the data. It's like, oh, crap. Every time that text goes out, we're losing the customer. Like, maybe we should go look at it, change the content, and see if that fixes it. Well, about 6 months ago, we did. And now every time that text goes, it results in an X date. And so by having the data, by looking at the results of the campaigns and the processes, we've been able to kind of tool the message and fix it and clean it up to get better experiences. And so what's the ultimate goal of a report like this? It is to find the touch point that is having the most impact in your positive conversions and moving it earlier in the timeline without uh, uh, hurting your conversion rates. And so what am I saying? Hypothetically, text message 2 is the best producing at moving you in a positive direction. And it comes out on day, let's just say 8, hypothetically. Well, could we move it to day 7 without hurting the timelines? And essentially what we've done, if you could do that, and now when we have the next 600 people come through this campaign, we've shaved a day off of their buying cycle. Right. And so 600 days is what you bought the agency back by looking at the data and finding a way to make the algorithm of, quote to sold more efficient. So yeah, I'll leave you with 80%. 80% of your stage to stage conversions can be done with automation.
So obviously,
Yeah.
Austin's all up in the numbers. Numbers are our friend. Data is our friend if we allow it to be so. I think one of the most valuable things you have in the agency is the data that you own. But again, if you can't see it, it's owning you. So we've got about 13 minutes left. I want to make sure we get through things. So we're going to talk about what do we actually need to implement. So when I talk to agency owners, the biggest thing they're scared of when doing something like this is actually getting it live. So Austin, Sandy, you're pros at this. We'd love to hear from you.
Like, what's the next step if like you don't have a CRM, or if you have one, you want to refresh? Where do you think we should go? Don't have a CRM?
Yeah, for sure. Where
Okay,
should I
so
start? What are the things I need to be concerned with?
well, I think we kind of went over some of that. Like, you're missing out on the automation. That's a no-brainer. So let's assume that we've come over that hump and we're going to get a CRM.
Yep.
I think the next thing that we need to be concerned about, does it kind of blend with my tech?
Mm-hmm.
Right? We want to reduce some of that double data entry. Does my CRM talk to the rest of my tech? I think that's kind of the big first one for me.
Yep.
And then once that's kind of out of the place, it's will my team use it, is the other one that I really like to rely on. Because you could have, I mean, there's crazy technology out there, but some of it's got like a 6 to 12-month learning curve. Who wants to
And a
deal with
couple of
that?
100,000 investment in getting it up and running.
Yeah. And
Our
so,
biggest,
yeah,
sorry,
you're good. That's it.
our biggest thing actually, if you skip back, Tucker, please, is getting a champion. I kind of mentioned it before, but we literally had 2 of our top salespeople playing in this in our new CRM, to get them to care, to get them to love it, and to get them to understand it, to be able to say, and actually, when we went live, guess who the top selling people were in the first couple of weeks, because they were out adopting everything it did. Kind of wish we'd have just done it with the entire sales team, but you live and learn. But it was huge. It was like showing them what it could do for them, what it could do for their results, and therefore their bonus. And having them tell the rest of our sales team, I can't wait until this rolls out, was probably the biggest thing we did. Because it wasn't me as the operations manager, it wasn't the agency owner saying you're going to do this, it was their peers saying we really need to do this. And that was a huge help to getting everyone on board and getting everyone just using it straight away.
I think if the goal is to get to close to what we recommend, like a final product, which is about 500 unique touch points for personal lines and commercial lines, pre-sale, onboarding, and renewals, is to not shoot to be at 500 touch points on day 1, right? Like, first, can we just get the stages named and labeled and the deals into the stages without the emails and texts? Let's first just get organized, and let's move the deals through the system in a way that we normally would without the automation. If we just need to turn it on tomorrow, right? Let's start using it. And then, at least once a week or twice a week, we should sit down and we should write at least 1 or 2 emails per stage. right? Let's just get that first email in there, right? What's that first text message look like? Let's not think about, hey, we need to solve 30 days and 15 or 20 touches. Let's just get the one touch in. And then let's make a repetitive process, where we coming in as a marketing team, and we're talking about, the effectiveness of the so far campaigns and like what we think the next touch point should look like until it's all done. And you should have an automated experience for everything, pre-sell, customer onboarding, initiation training, indoctrination, whatever you want to call that, and then renewal automation. You should plan to have everything.
It
So
is a
someone
per-
asked for some samples.
Yeah, Austin, feel free to send, or Montserrat, we can send Bonnie Grant some samples.
Yeah.
The question was, will we get constant help? So it depends on the software company that you work with. The bullet we have here is find a CRM partner, not just the software. So for us, you get a customer success manager, training manager. If you work with us, we can intro you to other customers, into our Facebook group, which is pretty active. Because like Austin just mentioned, it's not like, hey, we turn it on tomorrow and my life is perfect. It is continuous improvement, continuous development. It does take work to get to your ideal state.
I would also add, because we switched from CRM that had been around for years, but got taken over by a mortgage company. And so we stopped getting any support at all. And I can literally click a button and say, help, I can't get this to work. And someone's on the other end of a chat. Doesn't matter what time of day it is. That's what you need to look out for, is the backup at all times. Because most people, especially smaller agencies, you're doing the sales as well. You're doing the customer service. You don't have time to sit and figure out how to set up an automation. So you want to make sure it's a CRM and a company that are going to back you up and give you that help you need. But at 9 o'clock at night, when you finally sit down and say, right, then let me figure out this automation, there's still someone there for you. And that's huge.
So Brian asked, how can a CRM help you with prospecting new referral sources? One of the agencies that we support in Denver, Colorado has a podcast for realtors, loan officers, and people in the financial space. And so they go out and they try and get their information and put them into the CRM to get them to join the podcast and become referral partners. And so they use the CRM actually to manage that entire relationship. I think if there's communication and there's steps in the process, the CRM is the best way to kind of manage it. If you have more than 10 or so leads a month, you're kind of to move to the needle. And then Bonnie asked on the sample thing, when it comes to content, like I have a philosophy that not every email should sound the same. Like we should go through like this psychological evolution in the message. The first email should talk about the perks of working with your agency. Like what's cool about you guys? I can remarket you at renewal. We've got 50 carriers, thousands of programs. We've got service, we've got a mobile app, we've whatever it is that your experience is. So what's cool about you guys? That's email text number one. Email text number two is maybe some social proof, like see what our customers are saying about us. You can actually throw them reviews and then do like a link to like your Google review page. People value what your other customers are saying. Like they want to be like everybody else. And so if you can show that you've got like a 5-star agency during your sales process, it's a win-win. And then at some point, it's only reasonable to break up, and that message should be communicated via the content as well, right? It's not you, it's me. It's not working out. Talk to you next renewal. And we got to say, hey, I'm not going to follow up anymore. And you'd be shocked. People will engage with each piece of that content for different reasons, right? Some people don't want to be broken up with. Oh, I'm so sorry. I was procrastinating. I meant to get this to you. And it works. So not every email should have the same, feel.
One I use during that stage is Austin, is the subject line is, have you given up on this? And it's a people don't like to feel like they're giving up on things.
Yeah.
And we talked about this a little earlier, driving toward an outcome, right? The only thing better than a yes is a no. If you can get to a no, that's not a bad thing. You can move on with the next opportunity.
One less person.
Yep.
I like to sometimes be a little snarky in my content too. So like, have you given up on us? Or like in West Texas, we say, did the West Texas wind blow you away? like where'd you go kind of things. And so you can play with, sometimes content can be fun. It doesn't always have to be very monotone. So
Our
yeah,
agent
so think
Tune is
about
just,
that.
sorry, he's just gone down a whole rabbit hole of rewriting probably 90% of our emails, because he got onto Chat GPT and he said, create an email for me that's following up with a prospect. And it did one. And then he said, make it like dating themed. So it's like, have you broken up with me? And there's just like, funny things like that, something different from what they're used to be seeing. But you don't have to be a writer. You don't have to hire a marketing person anymore, because these AIs can do a lot of it for you. But well, fortunately for Tucker, they can't do the CRM bit yet. So
Yeah. Right.
I'll still have a job for a little while, I guess. But Sandy, I think Brent Quinn was here earlier. I know he's having a great time writing with Chat GPT, doing emails. Their agency owner is in there creating content, back in the sales game a little bit, starting with some sort of template and then going from there. And that's that continuous development and improvement. So Chat GPT, Bonnie, essentially, let's say I wanted to, let's just show you.
Gosh, it's crazy. I think it's a good way to get started. You usually gotta, go through and kind of proof it a little bit, but it's gonna do 95% of the work.
It learns as you go along as well. It learns from how you ask it to, redo something. And so it does actually think, oh, hang on a minute, I can, if I do it this way. Yes, Bonnie, this is InsuredMine.
So yeah, that obviously showing a live peek here. So if I wanted to create content that says send a renewal reminder in 90 days and expand that, Chat GPT basically takes that and is going to expand it and write a full email.
How quick was that?
And it happens like this. Obviously, some of these things you may go in and change, but it prevents you from writing the whole thing. We all have writer's block, right? The other thing,
and all you got to do is go add the white space and you're done,
Exactly. The other thing it can do is if it wants to translate to another language, somebody was asking about Spanish, Mandarin, boom, it's now in Spanish. So if you've got an English speaker selling to somebody of ethnicity, this helps a lot. So yeah, this is live in InsuredMine. We've got people using it today. Yeah, people are going crazy. We love it. So huge. Okay, so dropping off with a bang there. I know we've given some great data today. Obviously, Sandy, Austin, thank you so much for joining, sharing your expertise. I'm sure Austin, if anybody needs a consultant, would be happy to chat. Sandy, I'm sure she's a busy gal, but would be willing to talk to folks as well as you go through things. So, any final questions? Any parting words from anybody?
Thanks for having us on.
It was
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. You know where to find us at InsuredMine. You can go to our website. You can reach out to me directly, tucker@insuredmine.com. We will be sending out the recording after today. If you have any other questions, again, get with us. Happy to help. But hopefully this was educational, not too much of a sales pitch. We try and make it that way. And, super excited to have you all here today. Okay, we have a couple people with raised hands. Aaron Farmer, Ed Gilman, Andrew. Anybody have questions that I missed? Okay, no, I think we're good. All right, well, we did it. We got 1 minute to spare. I bet it'll tick off right when we're going here. So thanks again, everybody, for joining, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Peace in the East.
Yes, Crystal, you will get the recording to your email after this for sure. All right, y'all, take care. Thanks, Sandy. Thanks, Monster.
Thank you. Bye.